nice.
That
Beethoven.
was my rendition of Furry Lisa. Am I now the next Beethoven? No,
Yes,
of course not.
you are.
I did it in
Why
25
not?
keys, while that old fart needed 88. What I'm trying to say is building a game takes creativity,
My man, you
storyline,
are.
character development, fun ideas for levels. This stuff has nothing to do with coding. So how do you build that creativity? Well,
Let me tell you right off the bat, guys, you're not developing next God of War. You're not developing next Dota. You're not making next League of Legends, Skyrim, or anything of that caliber. Start small. That's the name of the game.
it's just like becoming better at writing, alcohol, but also read more. Similarly, to get better at the creative aspects of game making, play more video games. I think that's why I'm bad at this.
I would highly disagree with that point. To know more about games, you can play up to a certain point, but then the name of the game is actually learning, programming, thinking about how to develop various aspects of core gameplay, thinking about physics, thinking about lighting, thinking about sounds, marketing, learning the business side of things, learning about platforms and how to develop cross platform, learning the game engine, anything but just sitting and playing games. I mean, game development is not about just playing games.
I didn't really play any video games growing up. I never had a console. The only game I really played was League of Legends, which is obvious. To top it off, I wasn't really a social kid either, so everything I knew about communicating was learned through League of Legends / all chat. Apparently,
I think this is very relevant to a lot of video game players. Um, a lot of us learn to socialize through various online games. For me, it was Lineage. You talk to people, you have a clan, you share some values together, you go to breeds, things like that. I know it's similar for World of Warcraft and a bunch of other titles. Well, that's very relevant.
shut the fuck up, virgins.
Oh,
Kappa
that was rude. You don't have to be rude.
is inappropriate and doesn't align with the values of Mathnasium's tutoring center. How was I supposed to know that we're tutoring third graders? Basically, I'm not going to be talking about how to get better at the creative aspects of making games because I have no fucking idea. But what I will
I mean, one way is building a bunch of clones, and then you can just combine mechanics from one game with mechanics in another game and try, to make it work. How about that?
will show you is how to take your existing ideas and actually do something with them.
Okay.
Hi America, my name is Trent Black, and this might come as a shock to some of you, but if you want to learn how to code games, first, you gotta learn how to code, okay? Look, I get it.
Yes, but right now there are a lot of visual coding tools which can, ease the pain as well. I believe in Unreal Engine, it's called Blueprint System, and Unity, there are a lot of visual coding editors as well. So, the barrier of entry is a little bit lower with those, I think.
You guys are young, you're hip. You don't want an old guy like me telling you what to do, but games are software and that means code. So please, learn the fundamentals of coding first. You don't need a computer science degree to have the basics of coding down. In fact, I'm halfway finished with my computer science degree and I haven't learned a single fucking thing. I've also heard quite a
Aha, that's what I was talking about. He is in the computer science, so he's not starting completely from scratch when developing games. He understands some principles about programming. This will give you a huge advantage in programming a game.
bit of advice thrown around like the first thing you need is passion. But using me as an example, you can see that passion is actually completely optional. Here's a list of things.
I mean, why would you be trying to learn a bunch of things, program a game if you don't even want to program a game in your free time? Doesn't make any sense.
things that you should have a grasp on before you even look at games. Primitive data types, variables, loops like for and while, arrays and lists, the differences between them, functions, conditionals, objects, like classes, methods, attributes, and object-oriented programming. At this
No comment. Even to understand and learn the things that he listed, most likely is not gonna take you 30 days. That's a lot of things right there. I mean, you can kind of like understand the general landscape of those things, but there are a lot of principles that goes, let's say, in object-oriented programming. It's not just gonna be learning one thing. It's also applying some principles, learning different data structures, learning different, let's say learning singletons, model view controller, patterns of programming, etc., etc., etc. It's a lot of different concepts that goes into the thing. And I doubt that fully understanding those things will take only 30 days.
point, you might be tempted to ask the infamous question, what programming language? Shh, I'm here to answer that for you. Shut the fuck up. How about that, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe that came across as mean and unnecessary, but I just mean I read that question every day, and if you're one of the people who asks that, I think you should die. So what's the best programming language to learn? I'd say it really depends on what you're going into. Like if you want to get into web, I would learn JavaScript. If you want to do some backend, you can try out. Now, while you're learning this stuff, you might be tempted to listen to Code 5 beats and post pictures of your hello world on Instagram to really play into the programmer aesthetic, which is honestly great. It's a great way to get blocked by me. The goal is to get to a point where you start spending like 10 hours of your Saturday to automate a task that normally takes 10 minutes. Alright, you got your hands dirty with some fundamentals, you've automated your statistics homework in Python, and most of all, you finally stopped listening to Code 5 beats. Let's make some games.
As a simple explanation to you guys, which programming language should I learn? Pick a game engine that already exists and learn whatever is suggested in this game engine. You're learning an Unreal game engine, is going to be C++. If you're learning Unity game engine, it's going to be C#. As simple as that. Depending on the engine that you try and develop your games in, pick a language that fits. That's all.
The first thing you gotta do is pick an engine. Can you make games from scratch?
This guy is talking
yes, but if you're watching this
right
video,
things.
I don't have that much faith in you. Start with an engine, and if for some reason you want to go past that, you can descend into low-level programming purgatory later. But I mean, even modern releases use engines now. Fortnite and Valorant, two of the biggest games, both made an Unreal Engine. I chose Unity because it's in my favorite language, English.
Good job, bro. Good for you. That's a right choice. I approve. As an authority person in game development.
It looked like it had a huge community with a ton of YouTube tutorials, good documentation. There's also Unreal Engine and Godot, but they're all just means to an end, so you can follow this video regardless of what engine you choose. I'm about to say
project-based learning. I actually really like that. You pick a simple concept and you make something out of it, and you learn that way. That's why I was saying that putting the God of War cuts in the beginning of the video was very unnecessary.
Say something controversial. In fact, I'm about to piss off half of tech YouTube. Thankfully, that's kind of my brand. I think programming tutorials are exactly what's stopping you guys from learning how to code. Because here's what you little fuckers keep doing. I've set things up so that I can learn Angular over the next 3 weeks. I'm gonna watch this 300-part series, and by the end of it...
Interesting. It's one way to think about it. I don't agree with that, but okay, let's see.
You'll respect me as tech lead. The tech lead. Your tech lead. Just watch me, Brad. I'll take notes with my right hand and write functions with my left. I'll take this potato chip and eat it. too real for you guys? Good. You're going to hell. Tutorial hell. Obviously, tutorials are amazing, but I'm not a fan of the whole following a 30-hour course mindset. One, you're probably gonna get bored and not even finish the course. And
Not really. If, like, for example, you're creating a 2D platformer, let's say, it's not gonna be boring to follow a tutorial understanding the whole concept that goes behind the 2D platformer games, and then, changing assets or adjusting those mechanics to your needs.
And two, most of the time you sort of just turn into a zombie and aren't actually learning. Instead, give yourself a project first and then just try to make it. You'll be so much more motivated to bring your own projects to life than to watch someone else make a to-do list.
Yeah, but how about you don't pick the tutorials that are completely outside of your project scope? As I said, if you're making a 2D platformer, pick a tutorial about 2D platformers. If you're making a Pong game or whatever it is, just pick the tutorial that fits the narrative.
But most people don't do this because they think, I don't know how to make anything. Yeah, no shit. Nobody knows how to make something until they do. This is where tutorials come in. Watch them when you get stuck. Learn what you need to learn at that specific moment. Problem is, most of you guys don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a beginner, like, you still have to watch something to even understand how to start. Like, imagine just opening Unity 3D and just doing a bunch of things. I think it's not gonna be as productive as somebody explaining to you what those things are and how you can use them to your advantage.
Don't even try to make anything for yourselves. And if you are watching tutorials without a project in mind, you should still try to not follow the tutorial exactly. If they're making a calculator that adds, make a calculator that multiplies. Now you're consciously writing code. Because if you follow a tutorial exactly, your brain kicks into autopilot mode and you just start monkey see, monkey doing, and you just start copying the code. But when you have to account for
I don't agree with that straightforward, but that's just my point of view.
change, that forces your brain to be conscious of the code you write to know which parts you gotta change. Otherwise, you're not really retaining any information. Let me show you how I applied these exact principles to learn game development so fast. League of Legends. This was my starter project. I did it in a 24-hour challenge, which is actually pretty horrible for learning, productivity, and overall physical and mental health.
How did you
But
do that?
good for YouTube views, so it's good to have balance in your life. If you don't look forward to being brain dead for 5 days, I'd say skip the 24-hour challenge and spend about 1 week for your starter project. My goal with this was to just learn the basics of the game engine, like navigating the IDE, like figure out what all these buttons even do, and then I want to learn how to create a character and make it move. I also want to learn some basic animations and manipulating images and states. I don't want to ramble about this project because there's an entire video on it already, but I just want you guys to notice that this isn't really even a game. It's just a sandbox for walking around with a bunch of different moving parts. That's not a
Didn't I tell you that, guys? Didn't I tell you that?
coincidence. This project was designed to just teach me how to move parts around, and I themed it as League of Legends for flavor. And that's where project number 2 came in, Wii Tennis. On the surface, it just seems like, oh, he just took another game and copied it. But no, I chose this for a reason that most people probably didn't realize. Physics. Physics is a huge part of game development, and my League of Legends project taught me zero physics. I knew that this next project of mine had to be something physics-based, so that I brainstormed ideas for that and eventually decided to do a sports game. I learned about hinge bodies because the racket had to not only be attached to the player but also swing around the player, and I spent hours upon hours.
Yeah, as I said, physics is gonna be a big component for a majority of games, so you need to have a decent understanding of those principles as they're being applied within the game engine.
Experimenting with how to apply force to the ball so that it would hit the right way. And then I also learned about bounce. But I didn't just randomly choose another game, it was a specific reason I chose this project. Once again, there's a whole video on this that you can go watch.
Okay.
And finally, I made a multiplayer game. Can you guess why I picked this one? The previous game taught me nothing about networking. This time I didn't even use the game engine because I didn't really care about the game aspect of it. I wanted to learn the infrastructure of multiplayer. And once again, remember we're doing a breadth first approach here. The goal isn't to become an expert at physics or an expert at multiplayer. The goal is to get a general understanding on a bunch of aspects because you
I thought the goal was to create games. Create a game in 30 days that is actually sellable.
can build on a small foundation later, but not having the foundation is pretty rough. So these 3 projects in
I say it also depends on the project that you're doing. So again, some games are not physics based, so why would you need to learn physics? While some games are heavily physics based, so you do need to learn physics on a good level to understand how to code certain things.
total, I would say, is about 30 days of work if you have no experience. Obviously, there's more aspects of game development that I haven't learned.
It depends. It depends on how much you know previously. It depends how much time you're spending in those 30 days. Some people might have 1 hour a day, while others will have 12 hours a day and motivation to keep going. So it depends.
But basically just pick your projects in the way that I taught you here and you guys will be learning fast as fuck. Now, I want to warn you guys of a zone I like to call the fraud zone. If you have ever tried to learn code before, you've probably experienced this zone. In fact, when I die and go to hell, it'll probably be this zone. You follow a tutorial exactly, yet somehow their shit works and you get 300 bugs and red lines. It's frustrating, I understand that. This is where
Yeah, that's why you do need to follow step by step. You need to pick the same engine version. You need to have the same libraries installed. That's why you need somebody who is going to explain those principles from the beginning.
your passion kills itself and you think about doing the same. Careers have been decided at this exact moment. You look at the bug splat and think, okay, maybe I should try law school. These bugs are so haunting that they start spilling into other parts of your life.
Yeah, Unity is like notorious for just, you have one little error somewhere that you need to fix. Let's say it's one line of code, but it will like produce 1 million errors right from the get-go, so you get fairly scared.
You start being rude to cashiers. One time I kept getting seg faulted so hard that I started throwing plastic straws in the ocean. But it does get better.
Uh-uh.
Suddenly you start understanding package managers, you learn how to debug. It's not that this stuff is super hard.
A lot of things. As I was telling you right from the beginning, a lot of things you need to learn.
There's just a pretty high barrier of entry, but you only have to get past that once. And hey, don't get demotivated.
No, you never get past that. You learn cloud build, a new version of engine gets released and it just gets ruined, and you have to relearn. You import Facebook SDK or something like that to hook your game up into the Facebook realm, and they release a new one, they sunset the old one, you have to relearn. So it's a lot of learning and relearning that happens.
By all the YouTubers who seem to be doing so much better than you at a much younger age. Because software engineering YouTubers are kind of like the Ivy League kids in your high school. A tiny percent of them are actual geniuses and extraordinary people, but most of them are just professional cloud chasers. Average people that just get out of bed in the morning.
True that. I myself would not consider myself a genius by any means.
And think, how can I convince people that I'm much smarter than I actually am today? I know this because I'm doing the same thing. And most software engineering YouTubers also never have a real job. I know this because I'm doing the same thing. Besides that, yeah, if you're completely new, then you're gonna get burnt out. It's fine, it's normal, you're not a loser, take breaks, try out other hobbies. I for one started Rubik's Cubing recently and found out that everyone hates you when you start Rubik's Cubing. My roommates say that I'm digressing in life. And
Oh, that's really funny. I like Rubik's Cube, but it's tough as hell to learn it.
I also don't want to hear any excuses like, oh, my setup isn't good enough to make games. You don't need a good computer to make games. The only cool thing I have in my setup is this standing desk, but it is pretty cool. Look at this, adjustable height levels. Link in description if you want to buy one. Wink, wink. Well, you made it to the end of the video, congrats. I hope you're feeling pretty motivated right now. But statistically speaking, I'm pretty sure only a small percentage of you are actually gonna do anything. Like always, most people watching tech tutorials don't actually do it right, but I hope that small percentage
True.
of you is a lot more passionate about games than I am, because I honestly have zero passion for game development. And I hope you guys take
I mean, people just have that misconception, even if they get to get get hired by like a big studio, let's say, and then they think that let's say they get lucky and they start working on the actual game. They think, oh, they're gonna like make a GTA or something like that and be notorious for it. But in reality, they'll be making like 0.0001% of the entire game systems. Like this one person will be responsible for making a character jump properly, or something like that. It will be like a minuscule portion of the game regardless. So why do that, in my opinion, if you can, work for an indie studio and actually say that, hey, like I made a smaller game, but I made the dialogue system and the character system and the inventory. That's all me. So that's like a big contribution towards a game.
that passion and the knowledge you learned in this video and make a career out of it, make some games, maybe go viral.
No, screw that. Don't make a career in game development unless you're actually planning to run a studio or be a part of a smaller scale studio and build what you actually like. I would suggest not to go and work for those AAA studios, but that's just me.
But the rest of you probably aren't gonna do shit. Just go back to jacking off 3 times a day to fill the empty void in your heart.
Yeah, it's a valid suggestion right there.
In which case, good luck, I guess. But either way, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and please like the
Yeah, subscribe to his channel 100%. I disagree with a lot of things that this guy has said or proposed, but listen, everybody has their own mindset about how they, do certain things. So, yeah, there is that. I do think everybody that wants to be in game dev needs to give it a try and, learn a game engine like Unity or Unreal or some other. Start small, create something small, and then see how you can expand your knowledge. But don't expect to just publish something and then make bunch of money out of it. That's not gonna happen. You need to understand marketing, you need to understand CPI, lifetime value, user cycle, you need to understand social media marketing, etc., etc., etc. There are a bunch of components that goes into making a successful games. I hope you like this video. Thank you so much. Please do subscribe to my channel, subscribe to his channel as well, and thanks for listening. Bye, everyone.